What if I told you that the fate of the world's largest passenger aircraft came down to a decision that would trigger one of the most explosive engine failures in aviation history? A decision that would see metal shrapnel raining down on an Indonesian village, 500 passengers facing potential disaster at 39,000 feet, and billions of dollars hanging in the balance. Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of why the Airbus A380 uses Rolls-Royce engines. A choice that seemed brilliant on paper, but nearly destroyed both companies' reputations in one terrifying moment over Southeast Asia. Picture this. It's the early 2000s. Airbus has just committed to building the most ambitious passenger aircraft in history. The A380 would be a double-decker behemoth capable of carrying over 850 passengers in an all-economy configuration. But here's the problem nobody talks about. This flying giant needed engines so powerful, so advanced, that they literally didn't exist yet. The A380 required engines that could each produce over 70,000 pounds of thrust. To put that in perspective, that's more power than what lifted the entire Apollo 11 rocket off the launch pad for its first few seconds. And we needed 4 of them. The engineering challenge was staggering. These engines had to be incredibly powerful, yet quiet enough to meet strict noise regulations at airports worldwide. They had to be fuel efficient, despite their massive size. And they had to be reliable enough to power an aircraft carrying more souls than most villages have residents. This is where our story takes an interesting turn. Unlike Boeing, which typically offers one engine option for its aircraft, Airbus decided to offer airlines a choice. And this choice would fundamentally reshape the aviation industry. 2 companies stepped up to this seemingly impossible challenge. Rolls-Royce with their Trent 900, and an alliance between General Electric and Pratt & Whitney with the GP 7200. Now, you might be wondering, why would Airbus complicate things by offering 2 engine options? The reason is actually brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. Airlines have incredibly strong preferences when it comes to engines. Some airlines have entire maintenance facilities dedicated to specific engine types. Singapore Airlines, for instance, had been using Rolls-Royce engines for decades. But here's what makes the Rolls-Royce option so fascinating. The British manufacturer wasn't just building another engine. They were betting their entire future on a revolutionary design philosophy that would either transform aviation or end in disaster. And as we'd learn on November 4th, 2010, it nearly did both. The Trent 900 wasn't just an engine, it was Rolls-Royce's magnum opus. Based on their successful Trent family, which, by the way, all Rolls-Royce engines are named after British rivers, the Trent 900 incorporated technology that seemed like science fiction. The engine uses something called a 3-shaft design. While most engines use 2 shafts, Rolls-Royce added a 3rd, allowing each section of the engine to rotate at its optimal speed. Imagine trying to ride a bicycle where the pedals, chain, and wheels could all spin at different speeds independently. That's the level of complexity we're talking about. But the real marvel was the fan blade. Each blade on the Trent 900 is made from titanium and is hollow. Yes, hollow, to reduce weight. These blades are so precisely manufactured that the tolerance is less than the width of a human hair. At full power, each blade generates the same amount of energy as a Formula One car. And there are 24 of them, spinning at speeds that would literally tear apart most materials on Earth. The statistics are mind-boggling. The Trent 900 gulps down 1.25 tons of air per second. That's equivalent to emptying a squash quart of air every second. The internal temperature reaches 1,700 degrees Celsius, which is half the temperature of the sun's surface. Yet the engine has to contain all this violence while being quiet enough to meet noise regulations and reliable enough to operate for thousands of hours between overhauls. When Airbus selected Rolls-Royce as one of 2 engine suppliers for the A380, it wasn't just a business decision, it was a marriage of European engineering titans. Rolls-Royce invested over $1 billion developing the Trent 900, betting that the A380 would become the future of long-haul aviation. The first A380, powered by Trent 900 engines, took to the skies with Singapore Airlines in 2007. The combination seemed perfect. The engines were more fuel-efficient than predicted, quieter than required, and powerful enough to lift the 560-ton aircraft with grace. Aviation experts called it an engineering triumph. Major airlines lined up to order the Rolls-Royce variant. Singapore Airlines, Qantas, Lufthansa, some of the world's most prestigious carriers, chose the Trent 900. By 2010, Rolls-Royce had captured about 50% of the A380 engine market, worth billions in revenue and decades of maintenance contracts. But then came that fateful November day that would shake the aviation world to its core. November 4th, 2010. Qantas Flight 32, an A380 powered by 4 Trent 900 engines, departs Singapore bound for Sydney. 4 minutes after takeoff, passengers hear what sounds like an explosion. What they don't know is that the number 2 engine hasn't just failed, it has literally disintegrated. A turbine disc, spinning at 10,000 RPM and weighing as much as a refrigerator, had shattered. Pieces of metal, some weighing over 100 kilograms, were flung from the engine with the force of artillery shells. One piece crashed through the wing, severing fuel lines and hydraulic systems. Another punctured the fuselage. Debris rained down on the Indonesian island of Batam below, miraculously injuring no one. Captain Richard de Crespigny and his crew faced a nightmare scenario. The aircraft's computer systems were overwhelmed, displaying 58 different error messages. They had lost hydraulic systems, electrical systems, and had fuel leaking from multiple points. One of the most advanced aircrafts in the world had been reduced to barely flyable wreckage by a single engine failure. What followed was one of the most remarkable displays of airmanship in aviation history. The crew spent 50 minutes running through procedures, managing to keep the crippled aircraft flying. The approach to Singapore was harrowing. They couldn't dump fuel, couldn't control all the brakes, and landed 35 knots faster than normal. Even after landing, one engine couldn't be shut down and continued running for nearly 3 hours. The investigation that followed was one of the most intensive in aviation history. Every Trent 900 engine in service was immediately inspected. What investigators found sent shockwaves through the industry. The failure was traced to a manufacturing defect in a single oil pipe. During manufacturing, the pipe had been machined incorrectly, creating a thin wall that eventually cracked from fatigue. Oil leaked onto the hot turbine disc, causing it to overheat and ultimately shatter. It was a tiny defect. We're talking about a misalignment of less than a millimeter. But it nearly brought down an aircraft carrying 469 people. But here's where the story gets really interesting. The investigation discovered this wasn't just a one-off manufacturing error. Several other engines had similar defects. Rolls-Royce had to inspect and modify dozens of engines worldwide, grounding A380s and costing airlines millions in lost revenue. The financial hit to Rolls-Royce was staggering, over $950 million in compensation and fixes. Their stock price plummeted. Their reputation, built over decades, was hanging by a thread. But here's what separates great companies from good ones: how they respond to crisis. Rolls-Royce didn't just fix the problem, they revolutionized their entire manufacturing and quality control process. They implemented new inspection techniques using advanced scanning technology that could detect defects previously invisible. They redesigned critical components to be more fault-tolerant. They created new monitoring systems that could predict potential failures before they happened. The Trent 900 that emerged from this crisis wasn't just fixed. It was transformed into one of the most reliable engines in aviation. Since the modifications, there hasn't been a single similar incident. The engine has powered thousands of flights safely, accumulating millions of flight hours. What's remarkable is that this near disaster actually strengthened the relationship between Airbus and Rolls-Royce. Why? Because the crisis proved that when things go catastrophically wrong, Rolls-Royce had the expertise, resources, and commitment to make them right. So why does the A380 use Rolls-Royce engines? The answer is more complex than simple performance metrics. It's about relationships built over decades, technology that pushes the boundaries of what's possible, and a commitment to safety that turns near disasters into learning opportunities. Today, the Trent 900 powers roughly half of all A380s in service. Despite the 2010 incident, many airlines specifically choose the Rolls-Royce option. Emirates, the largest A380 operator, uses the competing GP 7200, but airlines like British Airways, Singapore Airlines, and Qantas remain committed to Rolls-Royce. The engine choice reflects deeper philosophies about aviation. Rolls-Royce's three-shaft design offers better fuel efficiency at certain altitudes and speeds. The GP 7200 provides advantages in other flight regimes. Airlines choose based on their route networks, maintenance capabilities, and historical relationships. As we look to the future, the story of the A380 and its engines becomes even more poignant. Airbus ended A380 production in 2021, marking the end of an era for super-large aircraft. But the technology developed for the Trent 900 still exists. The lessons learned, the manufacturing techniques perfected, and the safety systems created have been incorporated into new engines, powering the next generation of aircraft. Rolls-Royce used the Trent 900 experience to develop the Trent XWB, now one of the most successful engines in aviation, powering the Airbus A380. The three-shaft architecture, refined through the A380 program, has become Rolls-Royce's signature, differentiating them from competitors. The story of why the A380 uses Rolls-Royce engines isn't just about thrust ratings and fuel efficiency. It's about ambition that pushes engineering to its limits, crisis management that turns potential catastrophe into innovation, and relationships in aviation that span decades and survive even the most challenging tests. The next time you see an A380 majestically climbing into the sky, remember that those Rolls-Royce engines represent more than just propulsion. They embody a philosophy of engineering that says bigger isn't just better. It's an opportunity to reimagine what's possible. They represent recovery from failure, the importance of investigation and transparency, and the reality that in aviation, every incident makes flying safer for everyone. What do you think? Was offering two engine options the right choice for the A380? Would the aircraft have been more successful with a single engine type? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into aviation's most fascinating stories. Until next time, keep looking up.